So last week, we kind of went heavy duty into answering, a couple of questions, Bill's question and Brian's question. So I wanted to follow up, especially on the workflow stuff, because I know that's a tough one to wrap a head around at times, especially with trying to figure out what tool to use when and for what purpose. So, boy, this weather change is wreaking havoc on me. Anybody getting affected by the weather and especially allergies? All right. So I want to expand on that. I want to continue the conversation with that. So I'll open it up to any questions. If not, I'll see if I can find something to kill an hour or so on. Brian, since it was your question, you got any follow up concerns or problem issues?
Well, no, but I do have a very larger question on, it's kind of quick about workflows, not respect to doing that, but on another level. My voice is going too.
Oh, I tell you, it's the weather, it's pollen and stuff.
So, as you know, I build websites,
Yep.
and oh, my, I notice my camera keeps coming and going. Uh, so right now I'm in the process of rebuilding or updating an existing client's website. So I work with WordPress, and so I have what I want to do. I have two essentially asset libraries. I like to just download the whole content library from the existing website and have that to do what I need to do with. And then there's going to be a lot of new stuff I'm going to be adding to the website. So I was I want to really kind of bring Lightroom into this process of that. But the nature of this thing is once I'm done with it, I don't really need to keep it around in Lightroom or that type of thing. And so two questions: what's a good way to import those? Because basically I'm downloading these files from somewhere else, so they'll be somewhere on my computer, but I want to put them in a good place so that Lightroom can find them, or because I'm going to get rid of them when I'm done, does it matter that, because right now I go through, like you, I have everything under a photos folder,
Hmm.
and everything is built off of that.
Right.
Uh, so I'm wondering about ways to
So basically, asset management.
asset management, and then and I guess it's another production thing as I thought about what I'm going to, for instance, what I want to do now is I need a bunch of just kind of placeholder images. And so I want to go into my library of existing stuff, grab them, but I want to make sure they have a specific aspect ratio,
Hmm.
and then pop them out and, optimize them. And then that's how I intend to use them. So I want to be doing After Effect things with, not After
Okay.
Effect, but do things in Lightroom like that.
All right. Um. Yeah, that's uh, uh, I love you, Brian. You just give me so much to work with. You, so this is not an easy one because there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
basically,
So
so you know, the thing I'm working with, this asset library from the existing website, it's essentially one folder. The thing is, there can be like three, four, 500 images in there, many of them duplicates.
Right.
And then my other asset folder for the project, that will just be another directory. So it's not a lot of directories, but just a lot of stuff, and I want to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
put them in the right place. And
Yeah.
so,
So I'm actually working on I just got finished migrating a website from WordPress to Squarespace. And so I ran into some of the similar problems that you do. However, I don't do it on a full-time basis, so I don't have a streamlined workflow per se. But understanding the different parts and what's needed for website design, I will give you some suggestions, not necessarily what I follow because I'm like all over the place. All right. But I know that if I were to do this full time, I would be implementing this. I don't because it's just a one of for me right now. Okay.
let me interrupt with one
Yeah.
other thing that just popped into my mind. This is actually very similar to something else that I do, has nothing to do with websites, but well, just last month, I got a sort of an emergency family help order to process some old negatives, some old pictures. So she sent me, a couple hundred scanned images, and I needed to go through them and look at them and do stuff to them. And so, same kind of thing. Here's a bunch of images I've inherited, and I need to bring them into this environment, Lightroom, to work on.
Hmm.
When I'm done with it, I don't really need to keep it around, but
Okay.
again, I want to put it, some way so it gets managed nicely. But it's a lot of different. The difference is it's not coming from a camera; it's
Right.
coming from some outside source. So
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing about these temporary projects is that you can use the tools they have available to you to get through the project, and then when the project's done, you just dump the files if you don't need them. You know, the nice thing is you can build galleries, or not galleries. You can import into Lightroom, use it in the interim, and then at the end just delete everything out of Lightroom. That's not a big deal, you know. Um, those two projects have two totally separate requirements. There's a very small little bit that kind of ride the similarity fence, but they're both two totally different requirements. So I don't know which one you want me to hit on first. Any preference?
the website.
The website. Okay. So in a typical website, assets come in a variety of flavors. You have text, you have photos, and you have like spot illustrations, which typically would either be JPEGs or um, uh, GIFs. Okay.
Well, in this case, all I'm interested on are JPEGs and PNGs.
Or PNGs. Okay.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I find when working on a website is that um, assets are spread out throughout the place. All right. And especially if you're working with WordPress, you know that WordPress just makes a bunch of duplicates all over the place. They take an image in and they say, okay, from this image I'm going to create a thumbnail. I'm going to make a small one. I'm going to make the a large one. I'm going to make a square one, and I'm going to keep one at the original size. And this is all done in the background. So what ends up happening is that your media library on uh, and behind the scenes gets filled up really, really quickly. But what ends up happening is when you're actually working on either building or rebuilding or migrating a website, you basically just need the original. You don't need all those extras. Uh, so what ends up happening is, for me, I tend to lose track very easily of all these assets and specifically their sizes, because I need to know that I have the correct size and the correct resolution for where I want to place it. So I also don't want to re-upload a bunch of excess stuff that the new website doesn't need. So I'm going to be very selective and I'm going to weed out all the unneeded stuff. The other thing I look for is outdated stuff, and assets that will not get migrated. Okay.
Well, what you are telling me is, again, another side thing of what I need to accomplish, because this
Mm-hmm.
site is
Yeah.
kind of old and is bloated. And so I was really going to give Lightroom a try to help me take care of that stuff that you're talking about right there. Like bring the
Right.
whole kit and caboodle into Lightroom, and then, okay, like the way you say, okay, what's wrong with trash the ones I don't want,
Yeah. Yep.
because that is, and but yeah, so that's what I was thinking of. So that's why I was still wondering. I've still got this bucket of
Mm-hmm.
images. So where's the best
Yeah.
place to bring them in
So
and import them in?
so for me, one of the things is, you know, you can look at file names, and of course, um, WordPress is going to rename a bunch of files according to its protocol, and sometimes it's hard to weed out what's what. And you never know where the original source was, so you're going to have file names that just absolutely don't mean nothing to you. Now, for me, what I like to do is I tend to be a little bit more organized with my file naming convention when it comes to websites. That I like to kind of, if I'm using an asset for a very specific page, I might label it with like the page title and then a number, or something similar, something that if I look at the file name, I know exactly where within the website it belongs. So if it's an about page, I might have the file name. It may have the tag about. All right, and that's just me. You may have a different convention. Okay, but if you download everything off of the main library, if you just bring everything in and say, okay, I'm going to play the sorting game, all right, it's hard to play a sorting game with file names.
No,
So
you can't do it.
you can't. It's difficult. You have to open and look at it, close it, open. So that's why Lightroom is great, because you just bring everything into Lightroom and it's going to display everything in a grid, and then you can see, okay, well, this one's named QRV1375, which it looks like it's a derivative of this one that says about me, you know, and this one might be just like the thumbnail to this one. So the nice thing is you can look at the grid and you can actually here. You can look at the grid, and right on the grid you can populate this whatever information you want. All right. So you just click anywhere on here, and you can say, okay, for while I'm working on this project, I need to know, maybe the file name, the dimensions of the whatever the file is, and things like that. And then you can look at it and it says, okay, well, here's a bunch that are the same. Maybe they're different sizes. Maybe they have different file names, but you can then just click on them and group them together into a stack. All right, group into a stack. All right, and kind of organize yourself that way. And then, and mind you, this is what I call monkey work, because this is something that you can do.
Because it's the work I do.
Yeah, you can, yeah. I mean, it's no brainer work. It needs to be done, but there's really no thought process really involved in it. It's just sorting and figuring out where things go. All right, and then
Well,
once,
a couple of things you said, what WordPress does for you, depending on the version, but typically, when you know that where it will generate a number of versions,
mhm,
they build the size into the file name.
yes, yeah,
So that makes that handy. And like for instance, today what I needed, because I was knee deep in exactly this stuff, I did not do it in WordPress. I mean in Lightroom, but I'm thinking that's why I want to do it. But for instance, I needed 12 images of equipment that were the same aspect ratio,
hmm,
so that it looks good when I go to build my table. And
right,
I had to set this up in Lightroom. One could have found those by name, or I could have just grabbed a couple and maybe applied a preset and say, when you create this thing, make sure it's these dimensions.
right, right. Yeah, and what's nice is that you can save, like for example, if you're using a template that has a really skinny header image,
Yep.
you can go in and you can say, okay, well, for this one, I want to make this a very narrow. See, this one is saved from website I was working on. You can save it as a preset and then apply it as needed, and there it is. I have my header. Okay, and then I can just spit that out. Or if I'm going to be using the same graphic for different things, like I could use it for a header in one part, and then maybe you know a main image somewhere else. All I need to do is create a virtual copy, and I can keep one as a header, keep one as a the main image. The other thing, which is nice, is that uh, you have the ability to rename things as needed. So at any point, all right. Well, let's get back to the sorting out. All right. So you weed out all the stuff that you don't need for the new site. Um, get rid of all the duplicates. Get rid of all the thumbnails and all the other ones that were auto generated, and just keep the originals. Right. And the nice thing is now you can be very creative with your organization because you can create folders. So you say, okay, well, uh, I'm gonna need assets for my about page. I'm gonna need assets for the I don't know, page one, page two, and page three. All right, we'll just keep it
Well, actually, in
generic.
this case, it's equipment.
Yeah.
That's my interest. Equipment he rents and equipment he sells. So
All right. So
that's what
yeah,
I want. It's going to be because that's right now 12 categories, 240 pieces of equipment,
right.
eight
Okay.
pieces for sale.
So you might okay. So you might have a folder that says equipment for sale, and a
Right.
folder equipment for rent. Okay, and then you just you just drop all the assets into those. All right. And then from there, you're able to create create the assets from the originals according to your needs. So, hopefully you have the full resolution image, and then from the full resolution, you can generate whatever assets you need, okay, at whatever aspect ratio. All right. And the nice thing about most modern website templates is that they kind of do try to use image ratios that are fairly standard. So you'll see a lot of 4:3s, a lot of 1:1s, a lot of 16:9s. Okay. Where you get the odd ones is typically in like headers and footers, and in like side panels, things like that.
Yeah, it seemed like about 10 years ago, now I think about it, 8 to 10 years ago, that some of these templates of these themes would just generate an insane amount of, and
Yes.
some of like, what the hell aspect ratio is that? It's
Yeah.
for their own stupid specific design.
Yeah.
So,
And one thing that I also recall more so with some of the older templates, not so much with the newer ones. The newer ones seem to handle it a little bit better through CSS, is that if you didn't get the size right, so let's say you were um, perfect case in point, board of directors. I'm going to be migrating the Connecticut PPA group. We're going to be migrating from the current website to a new website. The current website it's horrendous. And what it does is each member can upload their photo, their avatar, right? And the one that I uploaded was actually fairly large. And most of these websites will reduce it down or shrink it to fit. But there's one page, and it's the board of directors page, that everybody else had uploaded small images. I'm the only one that did not. So if you look at the board of directors page, they're all different sizes, and mine just stands out because it's huge. Everybody else uploaded, 150 pixel on the long end, or 200 pixel on the long end, whatever it was. So everybody has all these small ones except me. But
I
it's
thought
a
you were going to say,
yeah, it's
I
a
thought, I'm
what's that?
sorry. I thought you were going to say you're the only one in focus and everyone else
Oh
was
yeah, no,
pixelated.
yeah. Oh, that would be funny though. But it's a failure of the template page. And the thing is, there's no way of fixing it with that particular template, you know, which is frustrating. So I would have to somehow go in, delete my photo, resize it, and upload a smaller version just so it fits in, you know. Uh, so there is where you would run into some problems as you're building a website. Having assets available to you to plug and play, and say, okay, well, for this particular page, I need the images to be X by Y. You can generate all those assets at exactly X by Y. And you know that when the page populates, whether it's on a desktop or whether it's on a tablet or whether it's on a cell phone, it's going to render properly because you took the time to format the images according to the template needs. Okay. And of course, that's the benefit of being a web designer, is that you understand this. Whereas, somebody who, is given the website and says, oh, yeah, everything's on a template. Don't worry. It does it for you. That's when you run into problems. But that's a separate story. But the nice thing about having everything, visible in a grid like Lightroom is that you can see all your assets, and then from there you can move them to, into an organization that makes sense. So for you, all the heavy equipment that's going for rent will go into one folder. All the heavy equipment that's for sale goes into a separate folder. All right. Maybe you have uh, a separate folder for all your incidental assets. That would be like the icons, the check mark and the exclamation point and the silhouette of the person, and graphs and charts and whatever else doesn't fit into, neatly into other categories. Okay. And you just click on the folder and it shows you everything. All right. And then what I normally do is I'll get rid of those obscure, meaningless folder or file names. Like for example, cell phone photos. They're notorious for being a series of numbers and letters. Uh, you know, uh, so I'll get rid of that and I'll rename it to something that makes sense. So, for example, for a company that deals with heavy duty equipment, you might want to label each according to what that piece of equipment is. That way, you know exactly where it's going to fit within your layout. Okay. Especially if it's going to be handled by a database, which is something that I deal with when I do photos on white. What I do is I get my clients and I say, okay, what is your file naming convention? And then I make sure that when I export it to that specific file naming convention. And if there's 2 or 3 images that fall within that category, it's going to append for me automatically that 1, 2, or 3 at the end, Um, so it's a nice way of organizing your assets in that respect. And because you can create virtual copies, you're able to control the different aspect ratios that you need from a single image, like we discussed. So I can take this train image here, and it's okay. Well, I need to generate a banner, so I'll go ahead, create a virtual copy. All right. And I will go ahead and say, all right, for this one, I need it for a banner. You make your banner template, whatever that template may be. There you go. You say, okay, there's my banner. And then when you export it, because you know how the website behaves, you know what the template requirements are, you can create excuse me, you can create an export preset that will export it at exactly the size that you need for that template. All right. So let's say it's it's asking you to be 1,000 pixels wide by whatever the default for the ratio is tall. Well, here it is. I got 3,600, 3,700 pixels wide to work with. All I got to do now is come here and say export. Okay. Where do I want to export it to? Maybe I want to put it into a project folder. All right. So I'm going to put it into a subfolder called, whatever whatever your project name is, right? The excuse me. Uh, if it's got to be renamed, this is where you can rename it. Okay. And then, of course, the file settings, image sizing. On the long edge, I want it to be 1000 pixels wide at a resolution. And this one here, I usually go, if for a website, if I know that the template has, it's most templates now have a feature where you basically edit what you see is what you get. All right, the what you see, what you get, you're editing for the desktop, and then behind the scenes the template is automatically formatting it for a mobile device, correct? So what I'll do is I will put, most mobile devices, the resolution for these is 150. So I'll go ahead and put in 150 for my resolution. Not that it needs it, but I'll throw that in. All right. Sharpening is going to be for the screen, and so on and so on. And of course, what I like to do is after it's processed, I want it to show it to me in the Explorer, and I'll go here. Rather than hit export, I'll go here and I'll say add, and I'll create a preset specifically for that project. All right, so I'll have a project folder here. Okay, and then I'll give it a preset name that makes sense. All right, so in this case, it's a header graphic. So I'll put, usually the way I do it is I'll be like header, and then whatever the size is. All right, because you may have different types of headers depending on the template. You can have the full width header, and you can have maybe little section headers. All right, so understanding where the image is going to be used will help you give it a name that makes sense for its use. So maybe header 1000 pixels. Okay, and that'll be the name. So now whenever I need to generate a header for another page, it's pretty much done for me. I just go to the crop, I pick my already preset ratio for my header, position it where I want, kind of like I did with the train. And then I go back, and now that I have my export preset already made, I just click on that once and it spits it out and it puts it into my output file, and ready to upload to the website. Okay. If you need to add graphics or, any additional graphics to this, from here, I can very easily export to Photoshop if I need to. All right. But usually for headers, CSS is going to handle, any text overlays and things like that. So I just need pretty much just an image, just formatted. Okay. And then I say, okay, well, I need
Doc,
one. Yeah.
so to make sure, so the thing you just did for the header, you created, let's say the header, you wanted that to be 1000 pixels by 200 pixels.
Correct.
So you went over in your crop and you went in and made a custom crop that fit those dimensions,
Correct.
right? So then when you go to print, all you got to specify is the length, and because the 200 in the crop is okay, you're not going to have to worry about anything getting chopped or.
Yeah. So okay. So for example, all right. All right. So I need to create one that's 1000 pixels wide and 200 pixels tall. All right. So I'll go here. And I don't know if you can see it, but about a third of the way down, it says enter custom. Okay. So it's asking for a ratio. All right. You can calculate the ratio if you want. You can go online, look up a ratio calculator. But you may not even need to do that. Just put in 1,000 here, tab over 200 there. Okay. Um, let's see. But if we get rid of 2 zeros, okay, and get rid of 2 zeros here, all right, it's literally 10 by 2. Okay.
Right.
Right? Makes sense?
Yep.
All right. So there's my ratio. Okay. Now I have it's now a ratio. Okay. So that means I can make this whatever size I need in relation to the image. All right. So I may require a little bit more width or a little bit more height or whatever, to make it look good. Okay. So once I get that within my framework of the crop, I'll go ahead and hit enter. And that's my header size. Okay. This is the raw header size. All right, which is 3,989 pixels wide, but it has the ratio of 10 by 2. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So now, if I were to kick this out as a JPEG without resizing it, what am I going to get? I'm going to get an image that's 3,989 pixels wide. Okay. So if I were to upload that to my web template, well, guess what the website has, the template now has to do? And it has to take that large image and, shrink it down. Okay. That's unneeded use of resource to deliver an oversized image into a small container. All right. Which is, yeah, computers have gone faster. Yeah, resources are cheaper, but still, we want to be conscious of this as web designers and not overload the system, because the more of this kind of crap we throw into a template, the slower that page is going to load, because it's doing all that work in the background. All right. And our clients are not paying us to deliver a slow website, correct? So we're going to want to size this accordingly. All right. And that's where the export preset comes into play. It says, all right, no matter what size I'm feeding it in, I want an output of 1,000 pixels. All right. So we go export. We tell it that we want this to be 1,000 pixels, 1,000. Okay. And, resolution, like I said, I usually plug in like 150. All right, we're going to go into the Explorer here. Export. And now it gives me, all right, here it is. I don't know if you guys can, let me size this down so you guys can see it. 1,000 by 200 pixels. Where's my zoom? There it is. 1,000 by 200. Okay. So now I have generated an asset that is going to fit the template without overworking the system. The system no longer doesn't have to worry about an oversized image, sizing it down in order to fit the template. It's got one that's custom made for that template. Okay. Now, When it comes to generating assets, all right, that's typically a different part of the workflow for me. And I've said it in the past that typically when I generate an asset, all right, I generate it and I put it into a folder that is easy for me to find. And for me, that usually means on my desktop. But I don't want that desktop to eventually get so filled up with crap that it slows my system down. So what I want to do is I'm going to put it into a folder on my desktop because I'm going to continue my workflow from when I export it. I'm going to continue. I am now going to open up my web client, pull up the template, take that image, drop it in where it needs to be. Once it's on the website, right? I don't need it in that folder on my desktop. It's gone to where it's needed. I can now get rid of it on my desktop. Okay. And I can just go here and say delete, gone, and voila. Actually, I can get rid of these two. All right. Oh, all right. So the nice thing is that if something goes wrong, as I'm working on the website, the client says, say, I like that image, but it's not showing the right part. Can we show something a little bit different? Well, you don't need the generated image, okay? Because that generated image was useless. The client wants a recrop. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back here and we're going to say, okay, the client wants, maybe a little bit more of the sky showing. I'm just using this as an example. All right. So a minor shift, the client will be happy. All right. Now all you got to do is regenerate the appropriate size, which is easy to do because you already have that preset. Kick it out, go back to your web client, drop it in, and it automatically updates it for you. Okay. Then I come back to my desktop. I get rid of it off my desktop, and I'm pretty much clutter free in that respect. All right. So now we come back to Lightroom. Okay. And we say, okay, these are my assets. As I process and implement my assets onto the website, I'm going to give it a color code. Okay. So maybe blue will mean that it's in process. And green means that it's already been updated on the client's website. So as you're working on the project, all you got to do is look here and say, okay, everything that's green is already on the website. So at a glance, you can see what your progress is. Okay. You can also see when an asset has already been used. So if you don't want to duplicate the use of assets, this is a great way of checking. All right. And sometimes, you may need to duplicate some assets. All right. That's fine. Again, you can just check here and it says, all right, am I grabbing the correct one? Well, if it's green, I know I've already used it. So that means that all I got to do is reformat it, create a virtual copy. All right. Say, okay, well, this one was my original banner. We changed the aspect ratio. I don't need this one anymore, but we need to generate a let's say a 4x3. There we go. Okay, I need to generate a 4x3 with some blank space. Okay, there it is. I've now created my new asset, all right, that thematically ties in with everything else on the website. It's using the same source material, okay? I now generate the new asset for this, all right? So let's say this is used in an information card, okay? So it's gonna, yeah, actually, there we go. We'll do an information card and we'll do it like this, okay? Here's my information card. And on the website, what's going to happen is that I'm going to have the information card that kind of superimposes here, and it's going to have text, and it's going to have, maybe a little button here. But in order for this to maintain across multiple pages, the same format, you need to be able to generate the same type of asset. So here it is. This is my first one. It's establishing the convention that's going to be used for everything else. So now I don't need to worry about the aspect ratio because it's pre-built in. It's typical 4x3 standard. Okay. But I need to tell Lightroom, all right, it needs to be, 600 pixels tall. All right. By whatever width. All right. So I go in, all right, and I say, okay, I want to generate, export. This one's going to be on the short edge, or no, I'm sorry, on the long edge, which is the up and down. I want that to be 600 pixels, okay? All right, and that one is going to go in, whatever project folder you design for that one, right? I can spell. Okay, so you tell it where you want it, and then again you go add, save it to your project folder. Okay, give it a name that makes sense. All right, so this is going to be product info card. Okay, product info card. All right, so now when you need to generate future ones, you know exactly which preset to use. You say create, and you now have one, and it's going to kick out. There you go. 600 by 450. Okay, drop that in into your template, and you are good to go. All right. Once it's on the website, what do? We take this and we delete it because we don't need it anymore. Make sense? Okay. And then once it's uploaded, if what you'll want to do is give it, whatever color. Okay. You can also use star ratings if you need to keep track of certain assets. All right. The thing about colors and stars, you assign the meaning to those ratings. Okay. So for me, usually, I think I've explained it before. I kind of go with the stoplight scenario. Red is stop. Okay. Red means, there's warning. Red is there's an issue. Red is, something needs to be paid attention to this. All right. Yellow might mean that it's in process. It's not quite ready for full time. Okay. Blue can say, okay, I'm this close to exporting. All the work has been done. I just haven't exported it yet. All right. And then green can mean it's already been exported. And you know, because of your workflow, that once you export it, it goes straight into the website. All right. But at least it's been exported from Lightroom. That file now resides in that project folder ready to upload. Okay. So you assign those values that mean very specific things to you within your project, so that at a glance, you know, you can say, here, I'll just do this. You know, there's a couple of yellow ones, there's a couple of blue ones. All right, so you can at a glance say, okay, all these greens at the top, I've already processed those. Those are already been on the website. All right. Here's some blues. Okay, we'll make that blue. All right. Here's some blues. Okay. Those are the ones that need to be exported and put on the website. So if you have a bunch, all right, all over the place, the nice thing is we can come up here to our filters bar. I can click on attribute and I can say, okay, just show me all my blue files. Okay. So I can now take all of these and do a batch process. All right. So let's say here's, all right, 2000 pixels. Okay. I pick whatever export I want for those, okay? And I'll do a batch export. All right. It's going to take a few seconds, and then it's going to give me all of these. I now move those to the website because I'm continuing my workflow, right? Once you're on the website, what do? We delete it because I don't need it anymore. They're already been uploaded. And I'll go here and I will change all of those to green. As soon as they're green, they get removed from here. Where are they? There they are. They're in my green. Okay. If I need to know what I am working on, I can go right here and says, okay, well, I have some downtime right now. Maybe I'll just, you know, finish formatting these. Okay. Once I finish formatting these, all right, we'll go here. This is going to be for a card. That's 4x3 tall. I'm going to go ahead and scoot this over because remember the overlay card that I'm going to be using kind of overlaps here, right? So I need to make sure that I'm very mindful of how I crop this. Make sense? Okay. And now when I'm ready, I can go ahead and export that, export as needed. All right. There's my export. Okay. Bring it in. I can go ahead and shift delete. All right. And I can change that to green and it removes it. Where is it? It's right there in my, right there. It's in my greens. Okay. So that's one way that I typically use Lightroom for maintaining, controlling, and tracking assets on a website. Make sense?
Good idea. And a side thing I learned just while you were talking, I never knew about the 150 pixels for phones. I've always set
Oh,
when I create images, I'm usually setting it at 72 or
yeah.
96.
Yeah, pixel density on a cell phone is it's a little more dense because they have to they're basically squeezing a big desktop into a smaller screen. So these are typically I think Apple's are a little bit higher, um, but I typically just go 150. So, but
And
anyway,
And when you were first talking about that, I was chuckling because just about 3 weeks ago, I was looking at a city website and found these 4 megabyte pictures on the website, and
Yeah, yeah,
shake my head.
yeah. You know, and like I said, I remember when I was doing website design on more on a regular basis, what, 20 years ago. Wow. No, longer. Yeah, about 20 years ago. Where everything was coded by hand. Oh my god. Uh,
We made
um,
buttons in Photoshop.
yes, 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 yes.
I
CSS.
liked doing web pages when it was code, but I was a coder to begin with,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So I wish I could remember. I used this program. It was it was um it used short codes. I wish I could remember the name because it was brilliant. It was brilliant. Um, Code that repeated itself. You basically wrote it once as a short code, and then you inserted the short code into your own code. So if I'm building a page, I would have a short code for the header, all right, which is a separate little packet, and then I just need to worry about the body. But if within the body there were items that repeated, I would create a packet which would be short coded. And of course, the footer would be a separate packet with a short code. So when I wrote my page, it would be short code, content block with the HTML. All right. This is pre CSS. So everything HTML, and then short code. And then you run it through the compiler. And then the compiler would put all the three pieces together and spit out the full code for the page to then upload through, to your web page. And it was beautiful because it saved me hours of coding. I didn't have to, cut and paste and keep track of, uh, what goes here. I just threw into short code. It was beautiful. And everything I wrote in Notepad. Notepad. Actually, it was Notepad Plus. Notepad Plus. We're at Notepad Plus Plus now, but it was Notepad Plus back then. So anyway, hopefully, that little rundown of a workflow will give you some ideas of how you can use this for yourself, right? And the nice thing is also, if you don't want to organize in folders, the other thing that's available to you, of course, is what do you call it? Collections. You can create collections.
Yeah, I think
You
from
know,
this application, what we were talking about before, it's just going through and filtering out because when it's all said and done, I'm probably going to only want like 5% of them. And I was importing them as we were talking. There was like 1,200 images that it brought in.
yeah, yeah. And like I said, you're gonna spend some time doing the monkey work and sorting everything out. Okay, but once everything's sorted out, it's a breeze after that. You
Mm.
know, it's just I hate the sorting out part. It sucks. That's why I call it monkey work, because you're going, oh, banana brain, but you can have music on, or usually I do my monkey work at home. on my laptop. Diane's watching TV, so I'm kind of half listening to what's going on the TV. And I'm just, moving files around as needed, It's funky work, but it's work that needs to be done because it makes life easier in the long run, you know.
Yep.
And the nice thing is, all right, depending on your client needs, if you need to deliver a gallery for your client for them to store, it's very easy to do it from here. You know, everything's already prepackaged. You just send them, Dropbox them the folder, because everything's pretty much self-contained. Okay.
Yep. Okie dokie. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Anybody else got any questions? Oh, all right. So let's continue the conversation with your images that you have to scan. All right, because that's actually going to be a little bit easier than keeping track of assets for a website. All right, because as you scan them in, all right, they're going into your client folder. Okay. And then now you can assign the colors for, particular steps. All right. So I don't know how much cleanup you're doing on these. All right. So the default is no color, right? So by default, as soon as they get scanned, you bring them into the client folder in Lightroom. Okay. And maybe the first step is to invert it. All right. Because you're scanning a negative. All right. I'm just assuming here, scanning a negative, you want to invert it. Okay. So the first step is to invert it. Okay. And, that's typically easy to spot as you're scanning. All right. But if you want to separate it, you say, all right, well, as soon as I invert it, go from a negative to a positive, I'm going to give it a red color label. Okay. Because and then you can just go by the order. They go red, yellow, green, blue, purple. Oh, here, sorry. It should be here. All right. So step 1, or you can use stars. All right. Actually, let's do that. Let's get rid of there we go. All right. So first step is, you're going to give it a star. And this might be easy because you just, give it a 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So as you scan them, they come in absolutely by default, no color, no labels, no nothing. They come in as a negative. The first thing you do, and you can even write a little preset script for this where it inverts it. And as soon as you invert it, you give it a 1 rating. Okay. And then step 2 might be to go in and do some dust and scratch removal. Maybe, just the big stuff. So you go in, and in the develop module, and maybe, you do the visualize spots here, and you clean it up a little bit. And as soon as you're done cleaning it up, you give it a 2. All right. So now, me personally, I like colors because they're a little bit more visual. All right. But you can just very easily come here and say, okay, well, I want all my 1 stars. All right. Those are all the ones that, let's see, is equal to 1. Okay. Those are all my 1s. Okay. They've been scanned by default. All right. They've been inverted to be a positive. All right. So now maybe I'll take some time and I'll go down the road and I'll do the spot removal. All right. Visualize spots. Do my little spot removal. Right. And as soon as I do that, I give it, my 2, and it automatically takes me to the next one. I'll go ahead, visualize spots on this one, clean that up, blah, 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 blah. All right. Give that a 2. All right. And work my way. Okay. So the next day it says, okay, well, all right, all the ones that I've done the initial cleanup, maybe I want to do something more with them, whatever step 3 is. Okay. Maybe it's, from the scan, everything is not quite even. You want it to be, you want to straighten them out, and you want, a nice even ratio, maybe 8:10 ratio. Okay. Uh, and the step 3, you go in and you say, okay, well, I'm going to straighten them out, and I'm going to give it, that 4:5 ratio, whatever it is, clean up the edges, get rid of, any problem areas. Okay. And that's it. That's step number 3. Okay. And as you go and do that, you give it a 3, it removes it from that view. Okay. And now the next day, go to step number 4. You want to do step number 4. So all you want to do now is pull up all your step 3s. What's step number 4? Maybe step number 4 is actually generating a printable file. Okay. Something that's going to go to the printers. Okay. And then you just batch process these as an export. Okay. Once they're exported, you give them, there we go. There's my 4. Okay. And then step 5, whatever step 5 is. Okay. Step 5, you're going to cull through, and you're only going to keep the very best. All right. So, I like that one. That one's going to be number 5. Okay. So number 5, I have 2 that I've, considered for printing. Maybe 5, I'm going to make that, instead of a 4:6, I'm going to make that into an 8:10. All right. I'm just making stuff up, but this is how you can use the star ratings for your workflow. Okay. So at any time you can, look through and see exactly where your progress is, just by clicking on the star ratings. Okay. And because you assign the value, you know exactly where it is in your workflow. Okay. Make sense? Okay. And then once everything's been output, the project's done. If you don't want to save these, which I don't know why you wouldn't, let's say it's for a client. You don't need them on yours. They're not your photos. They're your clients. All right. You can then package all these. They're already packaged into a folder, right? You just take that folder, put it into a Dropbox for them to collect, and then you remove it from your library. Okay? Any questions?
No, I was going to say I was a little slow to turn on the audio, but that's a neat idea about using stars for tracking steps of a
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. So the thing is to when you have a project that has a lot of moving parts, you need some kind of management to manage what's been done, what needs to be done, you know, and things like that. It's for any project. And I don't care what project, you need some way of determining what your progress is. Okay. You know, for my photography business, I have a client management program that does that for me. You know, I just have to make sure that I put in my stars, put in my color labels, you know, in order to be able to judge my progress. Okay, but after a while, it becomes second nature. All right. Here are my images that I have to process today. I got 15 of them. There are, you know, 2 stars. I know at 2 stars, my next step is such and such. As you do them, as one image gets done, you give it a 3 stars, automatically upgrades it to the next part of your workflow. Okay. That way you can compartmentalize. All right. If you want to do multiple steps, you can, you know. So here it is. You're at step 1. You want to do step 2, 3, and 4. Go ahead, but just make sure that when you're done with step 4, you mark it as step 4. That way you keep track of the progress. Okay. So, you know, there is flexibility within the system, you know. All right. And I think that's it. Any other questions regarding any of the workflow stuff? Bob, Alan?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Any questions about last week's workflow stuff?
Just
It hurt my brain.
Uh,
I, I sat there after it was all over and I'm thinking about that. I go, what just happened?
yeah.
Because it's way over my head, but I find there's always something that I could use. Just like now, I've been jotting down a few things. I've been using colors. I've been using stars, and I've been for organization, which I'm terrible at because I don't need it in what I do. But I know like if I have photographs from I go to something every year, I want to find them again. I don't want to look through all 30,000 photos, So, yeah, so in a very broad sense, I use pretty similar to what you were just showing, and it kind of verifies what I've been doing is virtually correct. I hate
Yeah.
to say that, but I think I did something right.
Yeah. And to add to what you just said, you know, when you do events, and it doesn't matter what kind of event, it doesn't have to be, you know, a work event. It could be, you know, you went to a car show, all right? You went to a flower show, okay? Those things that are, you know, occur annually, okay? When you import them, try to remember to always add some kind of global tag keyword to your imports. Okay, so if you recall, I like maintaining that date. All right, so when it imports it automatically with the date the photo was taken, and it creates a folder with the date for that image, and all the images taken on that day go into that folder. The date by itself means absolutely nothing to me. My memory's not that good. All right.
You and me both.
Yeah. So I append the date with a real world description of what the event is. All right. So maybe it's the JC Annual Car Show. All right. So I'll put JC Annual Car Show or just JC Car Show. Okay. So that way I know later on, 3-4 years down the road, if I want to look at my all the images that I've taken at that car show, I just go to the filter bar, I type in JC Car Show, and it's going to give me all the images with that tag, with that keyword. Okay. And then I can do an album if I want to put together a little book, if I want to create a calendar. All right. So I've been photographing it for 5 years. They finally noticed that, I'm consistent with great photos from their event. They approached me, to do next year's calendar. Great. I got 5 years worth of material that I can put together a calendar with. All right. Here it is. All right. I'm going to pick 12 of my favorite, maybe pick a few more, present it to their board of directors and say, hey, this is what you can choose from. Okay. Give them some semblance of like input. Oh, we can make decisions on this. All right. And they come back and says, hey, we like, this, and this. We'll use that for our calendar. And then, you just create the calendar. That's just, I'm just making up an example, but that's one way you can do it, if you do the same annual flower show, what's that? Or the train show in New York. Okay. Maybe you go to that every year. All right. Well, make sure you label it with the keyword. That way, you just type in the keyword and you'll see all the years that you've been to that train show. Okay. But it just, you need to be consistent. Okay.
Zach, if you have more than one keyword, is there a comma between them?
Yes, they're comma delimited. Yes.
Now, if you have 3 or 4 keywords, say you want to be a little more organized, and you pick out one keyword, will it only pick up that one? Or do you have to have all 3 keywords
All right.
when you
So,
sort?
all right. So let's say I went on safari. Okay. I do an annual safari to Africa, the Congo. Ooh. Yeah, I wish. All right. I've been doing it for 10 years. Okay. As I import, all right, I go for 3 days. All right. Every year I go for 3 days. I photograph animals out there in the Congo. All right. I'm going to download the images to my system, and I'm going to give it a global keyword: Africa, Congo, safari. All right. Whatever else, Okay. And those are global, meaning they apply to every single image taken on those 3 days. Okay. But on those 3 days, we hit different parks. And in one park, I saw antelopes, elephants, and giraffes. Okay. I'm not going to give a global keyword of elephant, antelopes, and giraffes across the board, because there might be, I might have a group of, 100 images that the only thing I photographed were elephants. So the giraffes and the antelopes don't belong in that group. Okay. So there I'm going to be a little bit more selective. So I'm going to just take the photos with the elephants. I'm going to label those elephant.
Just
Okay.
elephants?
Huh?
Just elephants?
Just elephants. Okay. Because the next set of photos, we traveled a little bit further on and we came across a herd of giraffes. All right. And we spent time photographing the giraffes. All right. Then it was time to go back. But lo and behold, a herd of antelope decided they were going to cross in front of us on the road. So we all got some shots of the antelope. All right. So now I have a group of antelope images. So I'm going to label all those antelopes. Okay. All 3 events happened on the same day. So now when we look at the metadata, you're going to see that the elephant photos have Africa, Congo, safari, elephant, comma, delimited. But the giraffe images are going to have Africa, Congo, safari, giraffe, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and and so forth. The antelope is going to be Africa, safari, Congo, giraffe, or antelope. Okay, and the next day we shot lions and lionesses and things like that. We caught a group of hyenas that came through. All right, so we're going to label those appropriately. Okay, the ones with the lions by themselves, you're just going to have lions. All right, the ones with the hyenas by themselves, you're going to have hyena. But where the two interact, I'll use two because I'm seeing a lion and a hyena in that photograph. So I'll label them both.
Yeah, but would you
Okay.
just put in when you search, you just put in a lion?
Right. So now,
You don't have to put in safari and all that. It'll pick up the word
well,
lion.
I'm getting to that.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
So now, I'm going to process my images. Okay. I took thousands of photos, all right? Of those thousands of photos, I'm going to select my very, very best. Okay? And I'm going to give those a 5-star. Okay? And out of those thousands, maybe I have 100 photos with 5 stars. Okay? I have some that they're great as a way of remembering the event. Maybe I took pictures of people, of the guides, of the equipment, the jeeps, and the other people that were in the safari. I'm gonna give those a 4-star. Okay. And then everything else, I could care less about those. All right. And then of course I got the ones that are like just nobody will ever see these because they're crap. All right. I might even delete those because I'll never use them. All right. So now I have 10 years worth of safari photos. All right. And out of those, I have all kinds of wild animals. Okay. And I want to put together a book. All right. I want to leave something behind for my family to go, wow, this guy, he took some fantastic wildlife photos. I want to put it in the book. All right. So I need some criteria. All right. I already know I'm only going to pick from the 5s and the 4s. Okay. And I want to section my book into parts, let's say. Okay. So I want one with big cats. Okay. So I'm going to put in, I definitely want the safari photos. So I'm going to put in a keyword for safari, comma, lions, tigers, lioness, whatever keywords I use for big cats. All right. Maybe at one time we got some cheetahs. All right. Maybe at one point we saw some panthers. So I got lions, tigers, panthers, cheetahs. Okay. All comma delimited. So it's going to go through all the 10 years and it's going to pull out anything with those keywords and it's going to present them to me. Okay. And I might have, I don't know, 300 photos. Okay. For me to choose. All right. They all have star ratings. They're all 4 and 5-star ratings. They all have big cats on them. I want to create a book. So I might say, okay, I want 20 photos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through them one by one, look at them. All right. I can see them in the grid, but I want to, really take a look at them. And the ones that I want to consider for the book, I'm going to give it a blue label. All right. Can't use the stars. Stars have already been designated. I'm going to give it a blue. All right. Anything that I think it's book worthy, I'm going to give it a blue. All right. I cull through them and I have 27 of them. Well, I only need 20. All right. So I need to cull them out. All right. So the ones that I want to use, I'm going to give it a red. I'm sorry, I'm going to give it a green. Okay. And out of all those 27, I'm going to pick 20 images and I'm going to label it green. All right. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the elephants and the giraffes. All right. Maybe I want one on those two animals, a whole section of the book on just those two animals. Okay. So I give the keyword safari, Africa, elephants, giraffes. And it's going to give me all those images. All right. I'm going to make sure that they're all also 4 and 5 stars. Okay. I don't want the 3 and belows. Okay. So it's going to pull up all those images and I'm now going to pick through. I'm going to pick my 20 from there using my colors. All right. Make sure I assign green to the 20 that I want to finally use. Okay. And maybe I want one with, scavengers. All right. So I have hyenas, I have vultures, I have prairie dogs. Who knows what else, whatever else categories, right? All right. But I only want like 10 of those images. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to pick my 10. Now it comes time to put my book together. Guess what I'm going to search for? Africa Safari Green.
Wow.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
And now I have my 40 images that I can put together into a book. 20 big cats, 20 pachyderms, or 20, elephants and giraffes, and 20 scavenger, or the 10 scavengers. All right. And I put my book together. All right. So that's why keywording is important. All right. And that's why taking the time at the very beginning, at least for the global keywords. All right. Because I have a library. My main storage area, all right, because I have several. 62,244 photos. Imagine going through 62,000 photos looking for elephants.
No.
No, I'd rather just, do it by keyword. All right. But you have to be, diligent about keywording your images at least globally as you bring them in.
Import. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I have the
Great
dumb
question.
question of the evening.
No such thing.
Those,
Where are you putting these search terms for keywords?
Oh. All right.
I thought you had to build a smart collection.
Nope. Nope. You have. All right. Let me. All right. Here we go. Okay. Here's my this is just one folder. Okay, this is just one folder. This is the images I use for the classroom stuff. Okay, there's a toolbar at the top. Okay, if you don't see a toolbar at the top, just use the backslash. All right, and it will populate it. You have to be in the library module for this. All right, so library module. All right, there's this little toolbar. Okay.
yeah.
None is the default. All right. It's not going to filter anything. Okay. And then now you can say, okay, well, I want to filter by certain attributes. All right. So here is the metadata. Okay. I'll just bring this down. Okay. And you can have as many columns as you need. All right. So we'll remove this column. We'll remove that column. All right. We'll start with one column. All right. Oops. All right. All dates. Okay. There's a drop down, and this drop down allows you to pick what you want to sort by. Or no, I'm sorry, not sort. What you want to filter by. All right. So right now it's set to date. Okay. Let's go to keyword. Okay. So here's all my keywords. All these images that have a keyword, all right, they're all right here. All right, so let's go to, I want everything with a Derby Greenway. All right. And maybe I want everything with, let's see, Monhegan Island. All right. Duck Pond. All right, so the Duck Pond and the Derby Greenway. So I'm going to click and hold the control key. All right, and I'm going to select that. Okay. So that allows me to make my first selection. Okay. I can then add a second column. All right. I'm going to add it to the right. All right. And maybe this one's going to be by flag type. Okay. So far, everything here is flagged. All right. But let's say this one was picked, this one was picked, and that one was picked. Okay. And actually here, we'll even do this 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. When those are all colored. All right. So I want only the images that have a flag. All right. And you can see here, I have 3 that are flagged and 1 that is unflagged. So I want all the ones that are flagged. So now it's going to just limit it to that. Okay. I'm going to create another column to the right. And this one, let's go by color, rating, not rating. Where is it? Flag at label. There we go. Color labels. All right. I want everything. Well, nothing's green, so I'll take the next best. I want everything that's blue. All right. And it's going to filter down until you get just the ones that you want. Okay. So here it is. I did this just on one folder. Okay. If I wanted to do multiple folders, all right, let's go to none. Okay. Right now I have, let's see, all of these. Okay. I want to filter by, oh, here, let's give this none. All the flags, all the labels. All right. So I have, 300, 384 images. All right. I want everything that's flagged. All right. We've now reduced it down to 64. Everything that's green. There it is. 2 clicks. I filtered it out. Okay. If you wanted to filter by keyword, all right, that's where you can go into your keyword here and filter out there. All right. But that's pretty much how you filter through. Okay. So you have the ability to filter by metadata or just by attribute. All right. And by attribute would be your flags, whether something's been exported or not, by whether you've had edited photos or something that hasn't been edited. All right. Some of these are tricky. All right. For example, this one that is based on whether it's been edited or not. I edit my images immediately as they are being brought into Lightroom. I have a preset that does very specific things to my images on import. So automatically, all my images are edited. So this particular filter for me will never work because all my images have some kind of edit. Okay. But I can filter by rating. All right. Star rating. I can filter by flag. And of course, I can filter by color, color status. Okay. And that's all you can do from this particular one, just the attributes. From the metadata, you can by attributes, you just got to select your attribute here. All right. But if you didn't want to, let's remove this column. Let's remove this column. All right. Let's say I want all my photos that were taken in Derby. Okay. And I'm going to go to my attribute and I want all of the ones that have a green flag, a green status. Okay. And there it is. Out of all those, I only had one that was green. Okay. So that's how you would use this particular tool. Okay. And then the last part is text. You know, this is if you're looking for a particular word anywhere within the parts of your image, whether it's a keyword, whether it's a file name, and whether it's the complete word or part of a word, all right, and things like that, you can put right in here. Okay.
Oh, that's the one.
All right. I usually don't use the text for keyword stuff. All right. I usually just keep it to the metadata. Metadata allows me to really look at this a little bit more with kind of like a fine tooth comb. Okay. All right, here are all my Croton and Croton Dam images. There it is. Okay. And these are all my images, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Okay. That answer your question?
Yes,
Yep. The keyword has to be when you import it, right?
Keywords when you import them or when
Okay.
you're editing them. You
Oh,
know?
when you edit it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all right. Going back to workflow. First part of your workflow, you're taking your images off the camera and pulling them in. All right. So on import, your import dialog box, all right, it's going to give you, all right, what do you want to apply during your import, all right? And this is where you put in your default import preset. All right, you can see I have one that's called, I have a preset called specifically import.
Import.
All right, it does it does a bunch of the stuff that I do across the board to all my images. Okay, and now that the new adaptive preset has come in, I apply that. That's part of the import. All right, that's why I said all my images, no matter what they are, they get edited right away without me doing any editing on my own. All right. Lightroom's doing it for me with that right there, that import. Okay. What metadata do I want? Well, I definitely want my copyright. All right. And you can edit that if you want. All right. But I definitely want my copyright information. And then what keywords? What keywords do you want to include? All right. This is where you put in your global ones. All right. And it's usually, what kind of shoot was it? Where was it? If it's a client, I'll put the client name in there. Okay. If it's a special occasion, I'll put what the special occasion is. All right. So if it's a wedding, I'll say wedding. If it's a bat mitzvah, I'll put bat mitzvah. All right. And as you start, actually, I'll do that, bat mitzvah. As you start typing it in, you will see that if it finds it in your keyword list, it's automatically going to populate it. All right. So all you got to do is hit the arrow key and voila. If you're going to type in multiple, you need a comma. Okay. And this was for Shabbat of Fairfield. It wasn't, but we'll just say that. Okay. So those are my global keywords. That applies across the board to every image from that event. Okay. Now, at that event, I took family photos. All right. So I can't label all of them family because not all of the photos that I took that day are of family. All right. So there I took family photos. Then I took the ceremony photos. Okay. Then we went to the reception. I took reception photos. Okay. So I can create blocks based on just those three categories. So everything that falls into the family photos will get labeled family photo. Everything that's for the ceremony will get labeled ceremony. Everything's for the reception will get labeled reception. Okay. And then at the reception, there were several events that happened. Okay. I will then take the blocks and label those accordingly. All right. These are not global. These are very, very specific to just a small group of images. Okay. So they had a photo booth. They had the permanent jewelry bracelets. All right. That the girls got. All right. So I can group them by their activities as I photographed them, and of course the candle ceremony and everything else you can get as micro as you need. Okay. And I usually do those as I'm editing. Now, as I am editing the image, okay, I have right here, actually, let me close that back up. I have on the side, I have two. I have keywording and keyword list. Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm
They
interested in.
do two different things. All right. Usually I will do the keywording as I'm working. All right. So here it is. I have 3 images of a train. All right. And see, look, there's no keywords there. Okay. So I'll type in train. Okay. And, let's say these were done for the New England Train Museum. All right. I'll go ahead and enter that. Okay. Comma, steam engine. All right. Okay. Hit enter. Okay. Those now have 3 searchable key terms. Okay. When I'm shooting event, what I might do is I might have a, here's one for outdoor, let's see, wedding photography. Okay. You can create these preset keywords that you use over and over again. All right. So the wedding photography one, all right, bride and groom. All right. Not every picture you take has the bride and the groom in them. And not every picture has the bride and groom together. Some are just the bride, some are just the groom. All right. So instead of typing this out all the time, guess what? All I got to do is come here and click on this, and it automatically adds that tag. Okay. So here's the family photos. I can just click on that. If I want to convert that something to black and white, all right. Here's one pre-ceremony, ceremony, reception. Okay. I can label those. You can create up to 9 keywords in these preset blocks, and you can make your own. Very, very easy. Just go here and edit the set, and you can type in whatever you want. Okay. And then you can save it if you want to save a new one. All right. So it makes adding keywords a little bit easier. All right. And like I said, if you start, let's see, here's one for summer. All right. I want to say summer. All right. As you start typing it in, you're going to notice that even here, it starts auto-populating it. All right. So as you come along, it's going to give you a list. All right. And as you continue, and now it took it to 1. All I do is hit the enter key twice. All right. And it adds it right into my keyword. Okay. All right. So now that's entering it, on a per image basis. All right. So in that case, I selected 3. All right. Here we go. You can select, this one plus this one. Let's see, plus this one. I'm using the command key, the control key. All right. And there we go. I think that's it for flowers. All right. Go back to keywording. All right. Flowers. There it is. Flower. All right. Usually I avoid plurals. All right. I avoid plurals. So instead of flowers, I'll say flower. Even if there's multiple flowers in an image, I'll still use the singular. Okay. I also do not capitalize unless it's a proper noun. All right. Although it when you do a search, it could care less whether it's capitalized or not. Okay.
Not case sensitive. Okay.
It's not case sensitive, but it will give you the difference between flower and flowers. All right. That's why I kind of keep it to the singular. So that way I don't screw myself up, All right. So that's how you can add. All right. Once it's added, it gets put into the keyword list. All right. And now this becomes another way of searching. All right. So now I can go here and I say, okay, look, here's one labeled band. All right. And for this one that says band, there's 1,736 photos. I can just click on that and it's going to bring up all the band images that I've taken that have that keyword. Okay. All right. Here's one, Banneker. All right. I can click on that and it's going to auto populate that with everything with that keyword. All right. Barkhamsted. All right. All right. That one might be on a external drive. All right. So that's probably not going. Oh yeah. No, here we go. All right. everything taken at Barkhamsted. All right. I have a bunch. So what I want to do, I want to, here we go, Barkhamsted. Okay. That's my metadata. All right. I'm going to go to my attribute and I want all my greens. There we go. Okay. Just like that. Okay. So you can use this on the side. You can use this at the top. All right. If you go with this one on the side, it automatically pulls it up here. Okay. These two, oops, these two are linked.
Oh, okay.
All right. These two are linked. So whether you use the side panel or the top panel, they're linked. Okay. All right. Basketball. What do I got for basketball? Oh, yeah. There we go. My my drawing reference figure. That goes back a long ways. Okay. Let's see. Batter up. All right. So this becomes another way of, being able to go through your images. Okay. But you need to have some kind of keyword. All right.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Good questions. Let's bring this back to the classroom. All right. You got a sneak peek in my library. All 65,240 pictures.
That's on this. There's another one somewhere else with more, right?
That's just on one drive. My other drive has 382. Another one, 3,721. My other backup drive, 8,629. And my third backup drive, 52,549. So add all that together. Whew.
That's a heck of a lot of finger pushing.
Yeah.
On the button.
So, all righty, guys. So hopefully you got some information to tuck away into your little toolbox of, for workflow and file management. Okay. Any last minute questions before we close out?
And for me, I'm all satisfied. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
Hopefully that'll get you a little bit organized for your projects.
I will.
Awesome. Okay, guys. As always, thank you ever so much for joining me tonight. I really
Thanks,
do appreciate
Doug.
you. Like I said, stay tuned for those photo events that are going to be coming down the pipeline. I don't know when. Some of you know that I'm in the process of moving, so my weekends are kind of tight. I've been going to the apartment to work on the apartment. So anyway, have a good one. Stay safe.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.